Hey guys, and welcome back to a new What If here, and well, yeah, I've somewhat kind of decided that 1 week, say, will be What If, the 3 What Ifs I've been doing for a bit, and then, say, the week after will be What If, Naruto likes to cross-dress, and well, possibly if you'd like a part 2 of this one, this What If. And yeah, I know, there's one missing. Which, yeah, I'll come up with an idea, or I will, I don't know, restart up or redo an old and existing What If already on the channel. So yeah, anyway, so let's get into this. So Naruto would be currently 12 years old. He'd be around 4 or 5 months away from the getting exams, and he'd experience when trying to do the clone jutsu, he'd felt an odd feeling like occur throughout him, and he tried suppressing that once, and nothing really happened, and it happened again. And he was somewhat confused because when he had mentioned this feeling to Iruka, Iruka was stumped, and Ron couldn't really help Naruto, and said that there was no real feeling. Maybe he was feeling the flow of his chakra, or that throughout him. Maybe he was a sensor and had highly enhanced sensory abilities to the point where he could somewhat feel his own chakra circulating throughout himself. Naruto dismissed that, not really even knowing what a sensor was, and really didn't somewhat care to learn at the moment. It sounded cool, but the more pressing issue, or at least to him, was what was this feeling. And the only other thing he'd come up with was to, instead of suppressing it, to just let it do whatever it wants to do. And so that's what he'd do. He would stand somewhere in front of his mirror, so if anything did change about him, there was a giant full body mirror in front of him, so he'd see any changes. And yeah, he'd somewhat close his eyes and calm himself, and as he'd somewhat slowly start getting frustrated as that feeling wasn't appearing, then he'd somewhat then he'd remember that it appeared twice when trying to do the clone jutsu, so he'd somewhat try doing that again, and once again the feeling would arise, and instead of suppressing it like he'd done both times, he'd just let it happen, as he could feel the odd feeling spread throughout him, as though he couldn't really feel though after a minute the feeling would then fade away, as he'd just think to himself, that was bit odd, but I don't feel any different. So he'd open his eyes, he'd somewhat forget a mirror was in front of him, as he'd just be standing back, as he'd just think, that's a beautiful fox girl person, as what now, or what his reflection was his hair had gone white, snow white, as white as the snow, and long, nice, beautiful, straight, long, flowing snow white hair. And he'd also noticed the person, obviously why he thought Fox was because the person also or the gal had adorned on her head two foxes, white, and again white as snow, and had what he could somewhat make out 9 snow white, beautiful snow white tails, the same as the gal's hair. And yeah, and somewhat beautiful, somewhat creamy white skin. And yeah, and her eyes were slit. Well, being a fox with a slit light, but her eyes was as blue as ice. Very just beautiful, very beautiful, a very beautiful ice blue colour. As Naruto would just somewhat say, beautiful was what, as he'd somewhat kind of like as he said that the mouth of the person would move as well, as Naruto would somewhat blink and would bring up his hand as the person would also do that, the girl, though Naruto would somewhat memory would get a jump start as it then go, wait, that's, as he just sharply looked downwards, as somewhat you just blink and go, so you'd look back up, that's, as he would somewhat look behind him, grab it's onto a tail and slightly yank it, as he'd slightly yip from the pain of of yanking one's tail, as it said. He was just like, this can't be real, right? This has to be a dream. Yeah, wait, maybe it's my transformation juice, as he'd say, release, but nothing would happen, no smoke, no nothing, as say, this just has to be a dream, right? This just has to be a dream, as he'd collapse face first onto the ground, and 10 minutes later he'd reawaken, as he'd go, as he'd somewhat rub his head, funnily enough missing both the ears adorned on his head, as it just go, that was an very odd dream, as he'd pull himself upwards or into somewhat an upright sitting position, as he'd just stare at the mirror, and as he'd go, it really wasn't a dream. And he'd somewhat start to panic, as then he'd remember, as he'd go, wait, calm down. Firstly, maybe if I try and make the feeling come back again, it will somehow turn me back, maybe. As he'd close his eyes, or her eyes, as he'd somehow get the feeling again, and he'd remembered from transforming into a female kitsune how to trigger it. He'd remembered how to somewhat trigger the feeling, and the feeling would spread throughout him, though this time being very much self-aware that yes, there were 2 ears, 2 foxes, 9 foxtails, very long hair. Obviously you'd feel them change, well, shrink. You could feel oddly 9 tails shrink into and shrink in, becoming 1 again, and his hair also shrink and somewhat, and just somewhat shrink. As after a minute, the odd feeling would disappear as he'd open his eyes again, as he was now looking how he normally does. As it goes, so maybe this is what people call a Geki Genkai, maybe? I don't know. Maybe I could transform into something else. Maybe it's just no, it didn't use chakra. As it'd somewhat just be confused, as it'd go, well, guess maybe I could try and transform into something else, as he'd try transforming into his and nothing. The feeling did trigger, but nothing changed about him. And yeah, he'd somewhat just sigh and go, well, what do I try then? So you'd just look out the windows, but some birds would fly by us, go, maybe some birds, but as he'd try, but once again nothing, as he'd just sigh and go, maybe I need to know maybe more about birds. Yeah, maybe that's why, because if I go and ask Gigi, then he'll just tell me to go to the library to learn about birds. So if I do it now, and then then if I still can't, then I still don't exactly get my answer, then I can go and ask him. Yeah, that's what I'll do, Dalbeo, as you then head off towards the library, and who'd spend a month there learning everything he can about birds. Though the books were in detailed about, not exactly about, say, every bird out there, as it was somewhat just the birds you like that were somewhat just what were more common in Konoha. And he'd read around those books, he'd read all of those in 2 weeks, and the other 2 weeks were spent on learning on possibly how birds fly, and how it could possibly be possible to maybe make some contraption that could possibly make that, could fly as well. And he just thought, well, if I can somehow transform into a bird, or this helps me to, then maybe knowing this stuff will help me to possibly fly. Didn't really know, so he read pretty much all what was on pretty much the basics of pretty much like lift and that, though obviously it was just people like bird watchers just watching birds and just writing down stuff on theories on how they could possibly fly, and like there could possibly be a way to mimic that in such a way that maybe wind users could use the wind to and could say make the wind flow over the contraption enough or well, its wings enough to possibly fly like a bird does or something else. And yeah, because a week into the entire thing, Naruto had forgotten why he was even going to the library, but he knew at least that it must be important. Must be important enough, and he'd probably remember. Yeah, after everything, and yeah, and that he did after after he'd read the last book, he'd remembered why he was there in the first place, and somewhat sad he'd put the books that he was reading or that he'd read back, and he'd had to go to Houston. And well, yeah, he'd knock on the door as Houston would say, "Come in." As Naruto would go, "Hey Gigi," he's go, "Hey there, Naruto. How may an old man like me help you today?" As Naruto would somewhat check and go, "Well, do you somewhat know how birds fly exactly?" Is Houston go, "No. Why don't you go to the library, Naruto?" And Naruto would go somewhat high and go, "Guess so. Well, I've already been to the library. You already have?" "Yeah, I've spent a month there learning, or at least about birds and how birds, and possibly how birds could fly, and that, and about lift, that, and that, and about like the theory of like say lift and drag and whatever." Houston would be surprised. Heck, the army would be all surprised as Houston would say, "Wait, you spent a month there, so right, like, yeah, why?" As Houston would just be somewhat stunned, as you'd think, that would be possibly all of Konoha's knowledge on birds, whatever he was reading about birds, and the lift and that concept. It could have taken, yeah. Susan would go, "May I ask, Naruto, why do you want to know in the first place?" As Naruto would go, oh, right, well, you see, like, well, a couple months ago, I got this odd feeling when I tried doing the clone jutsu, because I can never do one, so I was trying to do it, and I had this odd feeling come up, and I somewhat suppressed the feeling, not really knowing what it was, and I couldn't do it. And when I tried doing the clone jutsu again, a week later, the same feeling came. I asked Iruka about it, and he just somewhat said maybe I was maybe a very highly sensitive sensory ninja, whatever that is, and that I could feel the flow of my chakra throughout me. So I somewhat, well, I don't really even know what that means. And while I somewhat even doubt that now, I somewhat, well, went home. Well, yeah, I somewhat went home and just like tried making that feeling appear again. And once it did, instead of me suppressing it, I just let it do whatever it wanted to do, or what. And well, yeah, and after a minute the feeling disappeared, and well, I turned into a fox girl who's blinking, say, come again. It's not who would go, it's better if you see see it, as Naruto closes his eyes and trigger the same thing as who's in the amber would somewhat be stunned as they just watch Naruto somewhat change, though none of them could sense an ounce of chakra being used. And of course, well, yeah, and well, who's known if it was transformation jutsu, well, if it was the illusion jutsu, that'd be a puff of smoke, not unless, well, you had excellent chakra control to the point where you could exactly minimize the chakra smoke that would erupt. Which the eruption of chakra smoke was just the just putting too much chakra into the illusion as a whole. And, well, yeah, none of that happened, and Naruto opened up his, or her eyes, I guess I should say her eyes, as Hisan would be stunned, as, yeah, because Naruto was now a beautiful, obviously his height stayed the same, but his obviously frame was different. He obviously had now a chest, and it wasn't that big. It was, well, around on the smaller side of a B cup, so just barely a B cup sized breasts. But she had, and well, yeah, Hisan could immediately tell this was no Nine Tails like stuff, as he'd immediately, obviously he knew what the Nine Tails chakra felt like, and Naruto used no chakra whatsoever, and he was just confused, and he knew this was no Geki Genkai, because Geki Genkai also used chakra, and Naruto used nothing. So unless this was some Uzumaki ability, which was the only explanation he could come up with, that this was like a very incredibly rare, or like say specific to say a family, like say a family specific ability within the Uzumaki clan. And yeah, he was somewhat stunned and was wondering what could she do, what was this ability. And so I'm assuming you asked about birds because you tried shapeshifting into one. Well, I tried but failed. As Susan go, have you tried again? No. Well, why don't you try now with all the knowledge you have about birds? Maybe you just simply needed to know about the animal you wanted to transform into, or, well, not. Let's not call it transform because you're not using any chakra. Let's say, and let's call it say shapeshift. You'd shapeshift it into. So yeah. So have you tried say shapeshifting again into a bird? No, GG. Why don't you try now and see? And to somewhat just go, we just nod, and well, she'd close her eyes, and the same feeling would arise deep inside, while her eyes, the feeling would spread out, and this time she'd feel her body change as is obviously and after a minute it opened her eyes and she was now a bird, as his would just go, well, so well, it seems like you have a very unique ability, Naruto, unique would this be? Would this be what you call a Geki Genkai? No, Naruto. It's even, I would say it's even more special than a Geki Genkai. Even more special, yes, even more special, as you're not using no chakra to do it. A Geki Genkai requires chakra to transform, not transform, but to be used. A Geki Genkai is just a somewhat ability, another way of using, say, chakra that is more so clan specific, but can also be person specific, specific, as in the first Hokage's ability to use wood release. As Naruto, it's somewhat nod as Hiruzen would somewhat as Hiruzen go, maybe I should, Is it going Naruto, can you say shapeshift back? Please, I've got I want to try something. Naruto would just somewhat nod and would somewhat say, or at least try to say, though it only nothing really came out, so no. No, to just simply say, what form he was just trying to think of what he was called as. He's gonna go your normal form, you, as in you, Naruto Uzumaki. I don't just go okay, as he'd somewhat shapeshift back into his normal male self, as his would go here. Naruto would just somewhat take it and blink in a piece of paper. GG. What's this? As his would go, channel your chakra into it. It's what us ninja call chakra paper. It's it's chakra conductive paper, and what it does is when you channel chakra into it, it will show you what element your chakra is. What element my chakra is? What do you mean? Well, you see now there are five what us ninja call basic chakra natures, and these are fire, wind, water, earth, and lightning. Every ninja, not every ninja, every person has a element. And I say a because someone can be born with 2 or 3 or 4 or even 5 of them. And then there's also yin and yang, though we've got no real way of testing any affinity for those. That would somewhat just nod but be slightly confused. As Hiruzen would go and Hiruzen could see the slight confusion on Nat's face and go, speak your mind. What don't you get? As Nat go, what do you mean by the chakra natures? What does that mean? Hiruzen would rethink as he's how can I, as an Ambu would go, think of it this way, as say if your chakra nature is fire, you can say breathe fire or make a fireball. If it's wind, you can control the wind. If it's water, you can make water balls and control water. If it's earth, you can control the earth and make spikes and walls and domes and whatever you can imagine. If it's lightning, you can summon lightning and that. And I've got, thank you, Ambu-san. The Ambu would simply, quickly become visible, nod and become invisible again. Hizen would just kind of think to some stuff, guess that's one way to explain it. Yeah, is good. So do you understand now? Hi. But you said basic, so what do you mean by basic? Well, you see, there are things also called, say, we're not exactly sure if it's possible to how do I word this? Well, you see, there are, say, advanced, say, nature elements that require, say, 2 or more nature affinities, or that go. So, if I have, say, water, I can only do water-based jutsus. So, no. If you have a water affinity, it just means you can, like, say, doing water jutsu is a lot easier. But it doesn't limit you in any way. You can still learn fire, earth, water, wind, and lightning jutsu. It just means water jutsu are very easy for you to do. Naruto just got okay. And the more advanced ones, say, like, if you had wind and water, you could make ice. It'd be like ice, but and we'd call those a Geki Genkai, as no one ever outside of a clan, the Pacific clan is the Yuki clan, they can use ice, though I believe they're all sadly dead. But they could use ice. They could use wind and water chakra to make ice. And that is, you could combine, say, fire and earth to make lava. And that's only the few we kind of know of. That would somewhat nod, and so I could possibly have one of those. There's a very, 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 very slight chance that you could, Naruto. But I wouldn't expect it. What I would more likely expect is for someone to have possibly 2 or 1 to 2 chakra natures. That's a lot more common than having a say random person like you having a Geki Genkai that your parents didn't have. Naruto somewhat just didn't know who his parents were, but he was in someone gave a hint at, his parents, or at least weren't formally any clans that kind of knew of that had a Geki Genkai, or had classified their ability as a Geki Genkai. Anyway, channel chakra into it, and the paper would split in 2. One would get wet and one would freeze to ice. And in between those two, in between those two, it was somewhat the right climate for snow, as Hizen wasn't that surprised, as I'd go, what does this mean? Well, it means now to you can use, so you can use wind and, well, you have a nature affinity towards wind and water, and you have the Gekigen, you have an ice Gekigenkai that can, I guess if it's done right, produce snow as well. Naruto would somewhat just be surprised, and he's gonna go, well, you may be surprised, Naruto, but I'm not. After all, if you'd looked at yourself, you looked at yourself at a mirror, and though the reason why I'm not that surprised is because your hair and your 9 tails, all 9 of your tails, were snow white, which I'd somewhat guessed was possibly hinting at you having an ice ability of some sort. So it just means that I could use wind and water easier, right? Yes. Though the wind is actually very, very rare, even in Suno, aka the land of wind. It's incredibly rare even for them here, because obviously in Konoha here, because where the fire, fire is more common here, the land of fire. Yeah, land of wind is very much rare. Wind is a just naturally very rare ability to have. But what about water? Well, I would say it's like as common as the 4 other elements, wind, earth, water, fire and lightning. Naruto somewhat just now and go, here's gonna go though, is that anything else you need to know, Naruto? Anything else I could help you with? Could you just, is there any other possible clone jutsu that that I could possibly do, because I just can't do it? And Hiruzen would somewhat think for a minute, and he knew the one jutsu that would almost be perfect for Naruto. After all, his chakra control was somewhat bad, and his reserves were insanely high. Heck, he always knew when Naruto was using chakra, because, his chakra reserves were so large that anytime he'd call upon his chakra, anyone in Konoha would know, pretty much know, it was screaming out now that his control was bad. And yeah, it'd go, he'd really consider, obviously, just telling Naruto about it, but also, of course, he couldn't really be sure on how large his reserves were. So his reserves are obviously large, but he could also just have very bad control of his chakra. And would go, I do, Naruto, but maybe you should try better chakra control. What better chakra control? What do you mean? I can do the leaf sticking and leaf spinning exercise. Here's him go. Here's him somewhat high. Well, I guess this is somewhat better. At least I'm not. At least, you know. And Hiruzen would explain the tree walking exercise, and that if he still couldn't do it, then there was one called the water walking. I would explain on how to do both. And well, yeah, of course, months would go by, and now, well, a month would go by, and Naruto had pretty much mastered both of them to the point where, well, if he wanted to, he could do acrobats on the tree or on the water. Like, he'd gotten so good at the water and water walking that he could walk across the water without ever producing any type of wave or anything. He could glide across the water like it was ice, pretty much. And yeah, of course he'd go back to Hiruzen and tell him he still couldn't, and Hiruzen would somewhat, well, say around, would pretty much would ask him to show him how good he's gotten at the tree and water walking. And so they would, well, Hiruzen would send them to the training ground he knew was practically hardly ever used, and where he generally sent Naruto, where Naruto was training ground 7. And once he'd arrive, Hiruzen, it would bring back some memories for Hiruzen. Some good and some not so good. But yeah, mainly good ones of when he was somewhat younger and training the Sanin. When, like, their first, he'd somewhat smile and go, this place brings me back, is not to look up and go, what do you mean, Gigi? I was just reminiscing, that's all, Naruto, come on. As he'd, him and Naruto would walk over to, like, a lake. Over to a lake, which was, near a lake, as you'd go, firstly, tree walking as Naruto would walk up it. You know, you could walk up it, you could pretty much slide down and stop before hitting the ground. Yeah, he was, he was surprised. His army guard were also surprised. In 1 month, Naruto quite clearly what they could see he'd mastered this. Mastered this. Maybe he had better control than they initially thought, because, to master it to what Naruto was showing off should take any 12-year-old kid at least maybe 2, 3, 4 months of constant training. And obviously in that month, Naruto also, of course, had the academy to go to, and he was going to that every day. And Hiruzen knew Naruto couldn't make clones, or any clones that he knew of. So yeah, his strong control must have been a lot better than he initially thought. And then, of course, Naruto showed the water walking, and obviously to master water walking could take 6 months to a year to be able to truly master it to a high enough degree to not ripple the water. And Naruto would pretty much was pretty much ice skating across the water, and that it would take someone 2 to 3 years, and would require somewhat good chakra control. Very good chakra control, because it required almost nearly perfect chakra control, because one screw could send you going straight up or straight into the water, as he's pretty much making the gap big enough so that you wasn't getting any you wasn't really affecting the water, but still somewhat low enough to obviously be able to push yourself forward and that, but high enough to not really grip the water to like slow yourself down. So in other words, like ice, and it required a very specific height. Any higher, pretty much slightly higher, and you'd fly off. So like the tiniest bit more chocolate and you'd flying off, and the tiny bit of less and you'd grip the water and pulse and go face first into it, which he'd somewhat learnt the hard way, as obviously he'd gotten this good because he'd somewhat gotten bored of just walking across it and started trying to ice skate across it. So yeah, kind of inadvertently upping his chakra control to almost somewhat near perfect control. And yeah, you still couldn't perform the clone jutsu, which meant that his reserves, it would probably require perfect chakra control for Naruto, or his chakra control was just possibly too unstable, which Hiruzen could guess was because of the Nine Tails, though he didn't really he didn't know that Naruto only had half of Kurama, half of the Nine Tails. If he did, then that was the issue, he only had half of it. And pretty much, obviously, because Minto, when sealing Kurama on the Nine-Tailed Fox, he only sealed the yin half of Kurama inside of Naruto. Yeah, the yin half, the good side of Kurama, and the yang side, the evil part inside of himself. Where if he had kept the two together, Naruto would have been able to do the clone jutsu. Because the clone jutsu, which is an illusion, required the yin. I think it's like yin jutsu from spiritual chakra, yin. And if that's, though it obviously required a balance. If your yin was hiding yang, your yang was hiding yin, then illusions just wouldn't work. They required a balance. And whilst obviously other people obviously could do illusions, though maybe not great, but they could. Yeah, for a true master of illusions, they must have a yin and yang of 50-50. Pretty much meaning it would have to be perfectly balanced to be one so good, for one to truly master the art of illusions. And yeah, Hiruzen would say that was only somewhat signed, would pull out a scroll from his jacket. He'd had it on him ever since kind of that day, just in case if Naruto somehow truly did master those to a ridiculous degree, then he just couldn't do illusions stat, which would explain why Iruka's comment about Naruto when he'd done the transformation jutsu. It looked pretty much exactly like himself. He'd said everything down to the scar across my nose, everything it was like he actually turned into me. And now Hiruzen was somewhat understanding that Naruto probably actually did turn into him, though that obviously he used chakra because that was a puff of smoke. He received somewhat, well Naruto told him why he couldn't shapeshift into people, which, yeah, it seemed like he could only shapeshift into animals for whatever reason, but Naruto seemingly didn't really mind. Now that he knew, he just simply needed to understand, didn't exactly know how much detail he would need about, say, like a certain animal, but like, was it just the, like, say, maybe the insides about them, or that maybe what they could do, or the role they play, or is it just he needs to know almost everything that Konoha knew on that specific animal? That specific animal and specific breed. So, well, yeah. And, well, who's in mid go? Well, Naruto, what I'm about to give you is a restricted clone jutsu. Restricted? Why is it restricted? GG. Well, it's restricted, Naruto, because even though it's a jutsu, even though it's around a D rank, its rank is D, like jutsu classification D rank, but because of the chakra required, or at least it was initially classified as a D rank, though the jutsu have now classified it as an A due to the fact it just requires more chakra than what a normal really person would have, and so I'm giving this to you because I know for a fact you have more than enough to suit this jutsu's need. And who knows, well, maybe you could surprise me, make, I don't know, like 1,000 copies of yourself. And the difference between this clone and a normal clone is, well, a normal clone is an illusion, meaning your hand would just go right through a brick, a stone, anything, it would just go right through it. That would go, yeah, I didn't know that, GG. Well, this clone is called a shadow clone. I don't really know why it's called a shadow clone, but well, anyway, it's a physical clone, meaning that say if it got hit by a brick, well, the brick won't pass through it, or it would, but the clone would dispel. If it was splashed with water, it would get wet, not the water passing through it. It would just get wet. The water would stop and would get wet. And well, yeah, it's also got the unique ability. The jutsu's main ability is that it can transfer information that the clone learned, or the clone has, back to its creator. I'd go, what do you mean by that? Well, it's better if I show you, but of course I can't show you that unless you also make a clone. So learn the jutsu first, and yeah, and I would go by, and Naruto would pretty much could make 1,000 clones, 1,000 shadow clones easy. Of course, Hiruzen was somewhat just, Hiruzen himself could make, say, in his prime he could make around 50 to 60 clones. Now he could really only make maybe like 10 to 20. He was old. He's an old man. He's in his 60s. And Yeah, even no, it's not. Even Tobarama, the second Hokage, even he could only. Even Tobarama could only do like 70 clones. Shadow clones. And that was deemed like the most anyone could like do. And you know, his Naruto just easily done 1,000 though. Of course, Hizen remembered he's also half Uzumaki, and Uzumakis were known to have more chakra than anyone in the world. And as such, they could probably do what Naruto is doing easily and make 1,000 copies of themselves. And, well, he wasn't sure, but he was slightly, well, he was incorrect on that. Well, more so the age group. A 14 to 15 year old gaining to tuning could make 1,000 clones. A newly gaining a newly gaining Uzumaki could make 500 clones. A gaining that's been a Uzumaki gaining that's been a gaining for maybe 2 to 3 years, and a tuning, a low tuning could make Uzumaki tuning could make 1,000 clones. So even then, even in Uzumaki standards, Naruto had high reserves, but not, well, he had high, but to them his reserves were very high, and to Konoha they were godlike, you could say. And obviously Naruto wasn't pushing any, he wasn't really trying to make as many as possible. And yeah, Hizen would say, well, obviously Naruto popped them all, and Hizen go, well, okay, make one clone Naruto, and I'll make one clone, then I'll do that first, I'll explain afterwards. Naruto would somewhat go, okay, and would quickly do the hand sign, and a clone of himself would come into existence. Hizen would do a one-handed hand sign, and Naruto would go, wait, you could do it with one hand? It's like, well, if you do it enough, Naruto, yeah, you can do any jutsu with one hand, or even no hands at all, though I can't do that. I never really learned how to do it without using a hand. But yeah, it comes in very handy when in either spars or fights, or even say you're captured, and or say an enemy grabs your hands and you can't use them. Well, it's quite handy to be able to make a shadow clone with doing one hand, or obviously the best would be doing it without even having to move your hands, because, well, yeah. Anyway, I'm going off topic. Firstly, well, so clone Naruto, go off that way, and I don't know, talk or do something. Remember that, and then pop, and then yeah, the Naruto and Hizen's clones, Naruto and Hizen clone would nod, and they would go behind. They'd go like far enough out that neither Naruto or Hizen could see them or hear them. The clones would speak about something and then pop, both of them. And Naruto would go, yes, 3 ramen, as Hizen would just chuckle as Naruto go, wait, what? How did I know what the clone thought? What the clone was doing? Well, that's what I mean. When the clone pops, its memories return to you. That's awesome, Databayo. Yes, it is. It can also be obviously used for, say, training. And they would just nod and go, GG, if it's that good, then why don't you use it to help? Then why don't you use it for, Like to like, well, why don't you use it to help yourself in the office, like doing all that paperwork? Someone just look at him and go, it never came to me now. So that is a very, very good idea. And yeah, now I'd go, I guess it is. And yeah, and so since then, couple months, well, the remaining 2-3 months would go by, and yeah, Naruto would learn, well, he'd learn about, well, he did, well, his son had told him, well, obviously, and his son had told him that, obviously, being able to say shapeshift into a bird and say fly in the sky, you could say look down, like he could make a clone, and that clone, maybe if it can shapeshift or transform into a bird, it could fly up high, and it could then dispel itself, and obviously he could then say tell everyone where the enemy was, or hey, there's a trap up, there's hey, there are bandits up ahead, or that. And yeah, and Husen somewhat said, well, if you're looking at another animal to possibly learn about, why don't you try a horse? Wait, horse? Why, GG? For one, like we use horses to pull carriages and that, but well, yeah, and that's really the main reason. Somewhat say why, because say you're on a mission and like you manage to fend off the bandits, but the two horses, the bandits managed to kill the horses. And well, now you're stuck there. You and your team can't move the carriage because it's too heavy. With everything loaded, it's too heavy. And there's two options. Well, you kind of had 3 options: either to kind of cancel the mission and it would be a defeat. Wait. You'd wait there. You'd send back a message, and we'd send 2 horses. Or if you could, or say you knew how to transform into a horse or shapeshift, you could, and then they would hook you up to the carriage, and you could pull the carriage, to the destination. And they would go, huh? Yeah, thanks for the suggestion, GG, I will do that. And well, yeah, Naruto really didn't know what other animals to kind of learn about, so he'd spent, well, the pretty much remaining days, the remaining months, just learning about horses. There's a lot more about horses than there are about birds, or that, or at least for Konoha. And yeah, he'd learn about different horses, and so obviously different commands the rider would give the horse, obviously for the horse to either speed up, slow down, start moving, stop, jump, even. And yeah, and also obviously about the different gear, say proper horse riding gear, and the proper gear for a horse to put on a horse. All of that he'd learn about, and obviously the bone structure about a horse, the insides and outsides of the horse, and like even how obviously horse is born. He pretty much learnt all of that because he didn't know how much he needed to learn, so he'd learned all of it, and obviously with that, he'd learnt his clones couldn't his clones couldn't really shapeshift. They may be physically, but they may be they somewhat just a copy of him, and they were very easy to pop. He'd once just flick, just somewhat gave one a flick at seeing how easily they would dispel, and it instantly dispelled. Which means they were very fragile, which meant that they could probably in a fight only get off one solid hit before dispelling. And it's somewhat thought to himself he'd have to work on that, but maybe once he was again he could work on that, so he could use them obviously doing sparring and could experiment in different ways to reinforce the clone by literally giving it physical body armor to messing about with how the clone was constructed to pretty much give it more of a solid form. To maybe even possibly attempting to add maybe water, earth, fire, wind, lightning, or even his blood to the creation of the shadow clone, so that it would just be somewhat harder maybe. Anyway, so besides him himself learning how to fly here, he had he could make an army of clones, but he somewhat thought having maybe 10, 20, 30, 40 to 1,000 of him in the library would probably freak a lot of people out, so he'd have just a single clone go to the library. And plus, obviously Huzen did warn him, if you make too many you would possibly pass out from memory overload, and you could be out for minutes to days or even months. So Huzen had obviously said, using say 1,000 or even more, say for looking for something, or say fighting or sparring was fine, but for information gathering, specifically where you'd want information sent back to you, you'd probably only want to use maybe 5 to 10 at most for now. But as you got more comfortable with the clone or with the shadow clone jutsu, you can try obviously more making more and more clones to get feedback, or if you do say make 1,000 clones for training, have them pop in maybe groups of 10 to 100 at once, so that there wasn't too much obviously memories going back to him, so he wouldn't pass out. And so obviously Naruto actually, instead of failing, he'd pass, but barely, because of Mizuki somewhat tweaking Naruto's scores and that, or at least answers. Naruto would just barely, apparently from the answer sheet, pass. But when Huzen had looked at that, Huzen could almost immediately see Naruto's was tampered with, and he knew Iruka loved Naruto like a brother, that he once somewhat didn't exactly like him, but he grew to like and even see him as a little brother. So he knew it wasn't Iruka, so it had to be Iruka's assistant Mizuki, and he didn't know how right he was, as Mizuki would somewhat go up to Naruto. Of course Naruto had passed, but obviously kids had their parents. The only person that didn't was Sasuke. And so Naruto somewhat just worried, somewhat just sit on a rooftop, on the school rooftop, just staring out over as Mizuki would kind of land next to him and go, hey Naruto, can I sit by you for a minute? Sure, Mizuki sensei. What is it that you'd like to talk to me about? Mizuki was slightly caught off guard by that question, but thought really nothing of it, as none really sat by him, and if they did, they were somewhat forced to because of seating arrangements in the class. So, in go while you see Naruto, there's a secret ray. I'm only telling you this. Well, I told Sasuke, but he didn't want to. He didn't want to take up the offer, so I'm telling you this. Complete lie, as he never told Sasuke. Well, if you know the Forbidden Scroll, right? In the Hokage's tower, in the Hokage's office, yeah. Well, if you steal it and give it to me, I will promote you to Chunin. Naruto look at him and go, really? As Mizuki would nod, yes. Yeah, you'd be immediately promoted to Chunin, though. Don't tell anyone, Sanki's tell anyone. You'll fail. Naruto would somewhat just nod, and would get up and would somewhat be excited. Well, Mizuki would obviously tell him about to meet him up at and that. And Hiruzen would be looking at Mizuki and Naruto eyes on the crystal ball as he wasn't really sure what was kind of going on. He knew because obviously everyone, would obviously also get that score, and Naruto was mainly just sitting there trying to figure out how he got that low. Yeah, because even the answers that were written on it, some of the answers even he could see was wildly incorrect to what he wrote on it, and it just meant that, and he'd known because Iruka was somewhat always proud and always there for Naruto's, always there for him. So Naruto had roared out damn it, I forgot his name, Iruka, as a suspect, so it had to be Mizuki. But why Mizuki? Or at least that was the only other choice, because nobody else was yeah. And so he would take up Mizuki's offer, though his own kind of instincts, as since he'd turned into the fox, the somewhat fox gal person, his senses his senses got a slight readjustment, in that if anyone was kind of telling him something that was more than likely too good to be true, like this, his instincts would generally yell at him that, hey, this is a trap, don't you dare do it, you idiot, pretty much. And so because after that, and Naruto would just head off to set the Hokage monument. Though once he had felt Mizuki's presence vanish, he'd then diverted to his original target, Hokage Tower, and once he'd arrived, he'd knock on the Hokage's door, Hiruzen's door, as Hiruzen would say, come in, and he'd somewhat smile and go, Naruto, I see you've become a Genin. Naruto go, yeah, that'd be a past, but I didn't come here for talk about that. Oh, what did you come here for? Well, I don't know, but it could be possible that Mizuki is a spy. Why do you think that, Naruto? That is a pretty strong, suspicion to think someone's a spy. Well, the forbidden scroll, you pretty much sort of tell me to somewhat never really look at, and that it's got jutsu that could obviously be, very dangerous or even kill people. Yes, the shadow clone, the one I the scroll I gave you to, the shadow clone jutsu, that's in there, so yes, I do know. Mizuki told me that if I stole it and gave it to him, I would be promoted to tuning, but that doesn't sound right. Izum would somewhat look at that and go, "You're not lying, right?" No, GG, I wouldn't lie, not for something like this. Maybe say to hide a birthday, like say to keep it's like a birthday present, a surprise or that, but not something like this. And it now clicked for who's and why Mizuki was there, as he would go, now dude, well, I've got this paper here, which is the test you've done. Well, the test the squad gave out for yous to do. So could you please redo it? Sure, GG. Oh, you're not gonna ask me why? Naruto, no. We got our results somewhat back, or at least just like our answers, like marked. And most of the answers that I wrote on there were wrong. The answers that I wrote on were magically gone. Pretty much, they'd maybe shapeshift into the other answers. Some Chaco and so the Armbu and that. No, that could really, actually really shapeshift. Or at least that's what Hiruzen was naming it, Naruto's special no chakra use transformation ability. So yeah. And while Naruto would redo it, and pretty much an hour later he'd be finished and give Hiruzen would obviously would know the answers and would somewhat mark them if they were correct or incorrect. Tick for your correct and then X for incorrect. And he'd go, this is interesting. What's interesting? Well, your school would have actually placed you in the middle of the class. Luckily, the results haven't been public yet, as they will become not tomorrow. Well, once obviously, say you get your team placement, the best male ninja of the year, the best Konocha of the year, and the best male ninja, best female ninja of the year, and the worst ninja of the year will be told to the class, and you pretty much blast. But now this places you in the middle, Naruto. It does, yeah. It pretty much means all your other tests were either tampered with, because this is meant to be even harder than the other tests, like you say you've taken, and they've shown that you've barely passed, like a passing grade. But if this shows you at a middle of the class, then the others could have shown you maybe in the maybe it'd show you in the middle or even slightly higher up in the class. I can't really say for sure, but I but I can at least say for this test, this places you in the middle of the class, Naruto. You're not the dead last, or what anyone calls you. Well, if anyone calls you the dead last, you weren't. You are pretty much forcefully placed in that by, well, what we can presume is Musaki. But what are we going to do about him, GG? Well, you have been training in the earth and water jutsu, the water and wind jutsu, right? Well, what of your elemental training? Yes, GG, I have, and oh yeah, I somewhat forgot to tell you this yesterday, but my clones finally managed to split the leaf in half. Oh, well done. Funny enough, I actually have a leaf right here. No, he showed me as Naruto didn't even put his hand on top of it, which would somewhat surprise well, not all of them. Well, yes, everyone in the room, as Naruto, well, 1 minute the leaf was pretty much whole, and next, it would split perfectly in two, as his one would go, wow, you could even do it without even putting your hand on it. That's impressive, Naruto. Well done. The next step requires an alteration to a field. Why? Well, you see, the next step for the wind, for say level 2, which is the final level, is to cut a waterfall in half. To what? To cut a water in half, Naruto. Naruto just mouth and drop. Yeah, Naruto's mouth and just dropped to the floor. I just be staring at his and just like, what? Yeah. And he's going, well, yeah, and well, what about your water, Naruto? Your water control? What about that? I managed to pull the water out of the leaf. Ah, good. Well, the next one, or at least for that, isn't something. Well, like pull the water out of the air. Well, you could try to. That would definitely. You'd definitely be able to win pretty much any battle against a fire user. So I'd say to not forget that idea, but to try it after you mastered level 2. So what's level 2? To pour water and all the water out of the tree. So that's all. Yes, it's not as crazy as splitting a waterfall in half. Yeah, I can see that very much. So when will I be able to say combine them and start using ice? Well, I'd say actually say now. So you know how you've been making 2,000 clones, 1,000 for wind and 1,000 for water. Yeah, well, how about you make 1,000 for ice and have those try and freeze a leaf solid? Okay. And then what about level 2? Well, freeze a waterfall solid. What's with you and telling me to either split a waterfall or freeze it? Well, okay, it may be. Then yes, I do admit it sounds insane. But if you could do this, just imagine what you could do. You could fight. People could be sending you fireball after fireball, and you could construct, like, you could be in the middle of the desert and construct a dome of ice to protect you, or water. Well, probably more so if they're firing water, not water, fire. Then yes, it would be a water barrier, and if they were firing water, then I guess it'd be ice. But yeah, just imagine, like the possibilities. And plus, if you can actually pour, and if you could say learn to pour water out of the air, then you could literally make, obviously, as I just said, a dome in the middle of a desert of it being either water or ice, and could make, I don't know, ice spikes, ice spears, ice balls, ice anything. Or even if you get it right, perfectly right, then they snowball. Even though I don't exactly know what snow jutsu would have to benefit, but I guess there would have to be a benefit there for something. But anyway, you see where I'm going, Naruto? I haven't lost you, have I? Naruto would shake his head and go, no, I followed along. And well, yeah, the Anbu would somewhat think, obviously, if Naruto could very much do that, then Naruto would be possibly along the lines of an A to S rank ninja, and it would only be a Genin. The only issue with that would be his chakra control skills would be S rank, or even double S rank. His abilities though would be B, would be D rank, pretty much like Genin level. Genins were generally around D to C rank, and tunings, and this is for Konoha, so tunings were then C to B rank, and Jonins were pretty much borderline. Well, if I say tuning was borderline A rank, well then yeah, they would be, because Jonin were pretty much around, say, like very high borderline A rank, so very high B rank to borderline A rank to however high it would go, so S, double, triple, quadruple, 5, 10, 15, 20, 100 times S. You'd be a Jonin of Konoha, though, yeah, they've used that strong, you'd most definitely be recommended to become the Hokage. Yes, yeah. And, well, yeah. And obviously, if Naruto could get that strong, then who's on track to pretty much probably becoming probably beating out Minato and truly become the youngest, Hokage possibly ever. But yeah, though, firstly, he had to get his other skills up first. And that, well, yeah. Anyway, so Naruto, yeah, who's in the, I don't think so. Then, well, right, Mizuki, we came in to talk about Mizuki. Well, I can't really let you take it, because, well, obviously it's pretty much secret, and if it gets into the wrong hands, Konoha could be doomed, so, let's not go, what about, like, say, say turning a explosive tag into making it look like it was the seal, the forbidden seal, I give it to him, and then when he somewhat runs away to open it or that, boom, dead. Maybe, or I don't know, something else. You would go, that may work, but you do also realise, Naruto, if it does blow up, that would be considered that, well, you won't, well, it would be considered your first kill, yeah, he was using an explosive tag, but still it'd be considered your kill as you're the one that came up with this. So, yeah. Now to go, well, it's somewhat just sigh and go, I'm fine with that. He's gonna just nod and go, then let's get to it. And yeah, well, yeah, because here's Naruto would, Naruto would somewhat say leave, and at night would say somewhat fakely going. It was more so a shadow clone say going, though they would then say dispel, because the pretty much looked like, he'd got in and then got out without nobody noticing him. And yeah, he'd then say go to the meeting spot at the correct time, and Mizuki would somewhat just be there with a smile on his face as he'd go, ha, thank you though. Husen obviously would be pretty much with them, with his arm, and they'd all be there ready just in case Mizuki tried something against Naruto. As Mizuki go, well, give me the scroll, Naruto, and I'll tell you something. Tell me something. Yes. Why people hate you, and why you are called a demon. Hiruzen would somewhat be surprised, so the Anbu well, yeah, though Hiruzen knew that if he obviously interfered now, then he would know it's a trap, and the explosive tag, and yeah, who knows what could go wrong. So it was somewhat annoying, but yeah, he knew Naruto was about to find out that he was the Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tails Fox. And yeah, he would. Mizuki would spout that out, and Naruto would, obviously Naruto, he'd somewhat realize, at first Naruto thought that Mizuki was on about his shapeshifting ability, but then he quickly realised Mizuki said demon and that, which some people have called him, and then realised maybe the object on his stomach wasn't what allowed him to shapeshift, but was actually some type of seal to hold back something, and that something was the Nine-Tails. And yeah, he'd read up on Frinjitsu. Well, he was in the library. What was going to do besides read? And yeah, he'd picked up a book of Frinjitsu because, he just wanted to somewhat know at least a little bit about seals. More so to somewhat be because he'd thought they were boring. So he'd at least learn a little bit, and he'd learn that the thing on his stomach, he didn't really know what it was, but it narrowed things down to pretty much it possibly being, it only would be one thing, and Naruto thought that was an odd place to put a ceiling, so he didn't know what it really was, but he, or at least knew from just reading one book, like it was sealed and it was holding something, and he didn't know what. Yeah, and Naruto didn't know how to feel. Of course, though he'd known that his shapeshifting ability, well, it never really originated anyway from the seal, from where the seal was located, so Naruto knew it wasn't that was allowing him to shapeshift, so yeah, he would just be confused, he would be stunned, confused, quiet, as Mizuki would then run at him with a kunai and would say, "Die, demon," as Naruto's own pretty much instinct, sort of somewhat survival, would somewhat kick in though, and would just barely dodge the kunai. Mizuki would be surprised, and while Hiruzen the Army was somewhat kind of stunned to quietness, and Hiruzen didn't know, should he intervene now, or what? Like, if he didn't know. Hiruzen's mind was running a mile a minute. Like, how's that like relationship was going? Like, how would Naruto still want to be a ninja now? Would he still want to be a Hokage? Would he still love the village? Would he leave? Would he let the fox free? What would he do now? Now that he knows, and he's somewhat thrown himself into a panic attack, anxiety. The bamboo bed also somewhat followed Hiruzen's pretty much line of thought. So they'd all obviously felt sorry for him, but they didn't really do nothing to somewhat quiet down the, obviously, speak of the 9 Tails and him holding it, because if they did, then it would have been more of an actual secret and not of a, oh well, the entire village knows, but as long as nobody else knows outside of the village, we don't care. Oh, and just make sure none of the the younger generation know. Yeah, they'll probably find out eventually, but let's give that, at least give him maybe some hope of making children. No, making friends is what I was meant to say. Oops. He won't be making children anytime soon. Yeah. Oops. Anyway, so pretty much, Naruto would be somewhat thinking different lines, and thinking, help. Yeah, I somewhat realised no one was going to help. But yeah, you could somewhat, oddly enough, feel the Armbu and even Hiruzen's like slight, somewhat fear and scared. Were they truly scared of him, or were they scared that he could possibly release the fox? Heck, how would he? Didn't even know how the seal worked. That was a stupid thing to think, wasn't it? They were practically being idiots at the moment. Yeah. And Naruto, well, he'd somewhat, when he was in his somewhat kitsune form, he'd learned that a fox human hybrid from a storybook. A half person, half fox was called a kitsune or kitsune, and yeah, and he just thought, I guess I can give my kitsune for my try. I don't know, any time I'm in it, I don't know, I always feel more connected to my chakra and more just, I don't know, I feel like I can control it a lot better, like, just, I could imagine stuff and it would happen type control. And yeah, he would somewhat close his eyes Mizuki would think, yes, he's so scared that, and then, of course, Natsu's hair would go Snow White, and would flatten out and grow long down to his butt. Yeah, because chest would enlarge to a B cup, from pretty much flat chested to a B cup chest, and it'd grow 9 Snow White tails, and obviously 2 Snow White fox ears. And her eyes would change from the somewhat crystal blue to the ice blue, to the beautiful deep slitted ice blue colour that they were. Anytime she's in this form, or he's in this form. So open up her eyes as she I don't really know what to think of. Okay, now I'm in this form. Now I've shapeshifted. What do I do? Do I try rapping? Right, I don't have no kunai on me. I guess some kunai maybe would help, as a kunai of ice would form out of thin air. You should then make another one for other hand as well. Imagination. Yeah. And it wasn't just like, say, some normal ice. It was very thick ice, very strong, thick ice. Yeah, they weren't really that transparent as the moonlight hit it. The light reflected off would be a deep blue. Yeah, beautiful deep blue colour eyes. Yeah. And they'd be also incredibly sharp as well. And obviously Mizuki, see, you can even transform into a 9-tailed fox. You truly are a monster. She would retort back, I am no monster. The monster are the people that call me it. I have never done anything to hurt anyone. And all you have done, called me monster, demon, screamed at me, pushed me away, thrown me out of stores, kicked me out of stores. And yet I've done nothing, a few pranks at most, but nothing. I'm no demon. You are. As well, yeah, it would somewhat snap Husen and the rest of the Anbu out of that kind of stupor, as they'd go from somewhat scared of Naruto, somewhat slightly worried that Naruto would go off on his own adventure and wipe out Konoha along the way, to maybe Naruto didn't really hate Konoha, and that he would still would stay with Konoha and wasn't that angry at them for keeping it a secret from him all this time. Yeah, they didn't really know, but they were somewhat concerned. Husen knew Naruto's childhood was bad, but he didn't think it was that bad. Yeah, he just somewhat cursed himself and beat himself up, because he could have intervened. He should have intervened all that time ago, and should have, said that. Obviously, that all this whisper about this, like Naruto being the nine tails was, stupid, mean to have killed the fox. And yeah, like he could have said, he summoned the Shinigami, and the Shinigami had taken the fox's, the fox, the fox, to wherever, but instead he let it continue, and he didn't know. Anyway, so Naruto, she'd still somewhat continue to fight, though it would somewhat get harder and harder as Mizuki would start pushing his advantage, and obviously somewhat skill, though. She'd remember what Huzun had told her, earlier on, that, who knows, maybe she could obviously, make ice spikes or ice domes or ice spears, or she'd go ice spears, right, as she'd think of an ice spear and then remember about, all the way, like 4, 5, 6 months back, when she was somewhat went kind of like, bird crazy for a month, and it remembered like about at least somewhat aerodynamics and that, and should change this shape for it to be pointy, and for it to have maybe if I had fins, and maybe that could should somewhat add fins, and with somewhat obviously she'd obviously flown as a bird many times before, and it's seen, of course, other birds when they go to dive, their wings somewhat, as they dive and go faster, their wing shape, they somewhat start pulling their wings back more, so she'd make the kind of fins angled, somewhat like a half triangle type, a half triangle, and she'd then think, and have, I don't know, 10 of them, if my aim's that bad, as 10 darts pretty much would form, as, and she'd look at Mizuki and go, you die here today, as she'd just somewhat, give the someone, just imagine them just flying forward at who are just insane speed, just fly forward fast enough that you can dodge it, and they would just, all of them would somewhat just go through him. That had also dried up on the human body, just in case maybe that was why he couldn't transform into somebody else, but nope, he still couldn't transform into people or shapeshift into people. He could use the transformation, his own transformation jutsu that used chakra to transform into other people, but he couldn't shapeshift into them. The end, because he learned about the human body, he knew the best places to pierce someone to give them, to inflict the most amount of damage, at least the most amount of pain before they'd somewhat die. And Mizuki would somewhat just be yell out, and couldn't really even yell out, it would just be in pure pain, as she would just look upon him one more time and would form one more, and would just fling her hand like she was just throwing it, and it would just slice right through his head, and would go right through his head and right through Mizuki's head, a bullseye in his head. Just once it hit the second it hit the ground, it would shatter like ice. And I just somewhat close our eyes, the army would immediately quickly come and would somewhat take Mizuki's body right and somewhat clean up the area so it didn't look like a battle had taken place. And they would also take the fake highly explosive scroll and would detonate it far away. Here's gonna go. Naruto, are you okay? Yes, GG, but why didn't you tell me that? Why didn't you tell me I held in 9 tails? Why? Well, because you could say even I was scared, Naruto. I was scared that like maybe you'd hate everyone, and yeah, I'm old, Naruto. You know I'm old, so I'm going to make foolishness decisions, and this was just one of them. I thought you not knowing would keep you safe, and now stand right here is a stupid decision. I've done a lot of stupid things in the past. I just have to just go. I still don't hate them. It's just nice to finally know why they hate me, or I guess why they somewhat don't like me. Now I can start to at least possibly slowly, change their minds and show them I'm not who they think I am, and that I'm just Naruto Uzumaki, and Uzumaki would look at and go, I don't think you're just Naruto, you're Naruto the shape-shifting Uzumaki, or right now you're Naruto Kitsune the shape-shifting fox. I would go, somewhat go, oh right, and you told me you hadn't practiced with your eyes. What was this? You clearly is like, well, anytime I transform into my Kitsune form, I just imagine what I want to appear, and it does. And he's gonna go, I see. Okay then, well, how do you feel about your, first kill? Not to go, well, I don't really know. I can say for this, I don't like it, and I don't really like it, though, does it? No, it never gets easy to kill someone, to end someone's life, it never does, but if there's one thing I learned, that everyone's way of coping with killing someone differently. A way to cope with it, well, yes. My best ninja, he's somewhat of I guess you could call him a book pervert. He reads perverted books, but that's it, and that's his way of coping with killing people, and that, and his past, and that. So yeah, some people find training it, and others lose themselves to the point where, well, yeah, just remember this, Naruto. As long as you don't like killing, you are no monster. When you start like killing people, that's when you have become the one thing people, maybe even you, hate. Would be you'd become a monster. After it's somewhat just done and go through, you have to have a GG. I don't think I'll never enjoy it. It's just done and go, well, though I think before we head back you should change first. And go, what do you mean change? I'm not gonna get naked. No, not that. Naruto. I mean shapeshift back to how you was. Right. As you would quickly shapeshift back, and yeah, they would then, well, he was made somewhat sensing them back to his house, his home, as yeah. And this is where I'm gonna end it, guys. I hope you somewhat enjoy this nearly 2 hour long what if. So yeah, as I said, hope you've enjoyed it. Tell me if you want a part 2 and you want this series to continue, you want this to actually become a series, and yeah, of course if you do, then it would be say next week will be what if so it'd be what if Naruto had the was a Uchiha, not a Sharingan. What if Naruto was the reincarnation of Kage, and what if Kuma's chakra was turning Naruto into a female. Those 3 will be next week, and then the week after will be, I don't know, literally, because I don't know what if to do. Possibly, well, give me some suggestions. They can either be, I don't, say somewhat make it Naruto, so it'd have, keep that, yeah. Somewhat, yes, I do have an idea, maybe, but I want it. Yeah, up to you guys. Do you want a one that's exists, and then if you do, then please name that what if that's on the channel. And if it's old enough, if it's an old one, say like a year or 2 old, then just like say, instead of, hey, can you continue this, tell me to redo it, because I'll probably see it and see it, watch the parts, and go, I'm going to redo it instead, because yeah, if they're around a year or 2 old, I'm more than likely going to redo it. So yeah. And well, yeah, guys, stay safe, have a good day or night, depending on where you are and depending on when you're watching this, and well, yeah, good. Bye.